and my girlfriend kept saying I was too broke to be a husband. But when I broke up with her, she cried and said she was just trying to motivate me. I never thought money would be the thing to destroy my relationship, but looking back, it was there from the beginning. I met Vanessa at a mutual friend's housewarming party 3 years ago. She was stunning, tall with dark hair, confident, and had this infectious laugh that made everyone around her smile. I was instantly drawn to her. We hit it off immediately, talking about everything from our favorite movies to our career goals. She worked in marketing for a luxury clothing brand, while I was still establishing myself as a software engineer at a startup. The chemistry between us was undeniable, and by the end of the night I had her number. Our first few months together were amazing. We'd go on walks in the park, have movie nights at my apartment, cook dinner together, simple things that didn't cost much but meant everything to me. She seemed happy too, always excited to see me and hear about my day. The first hint of trouble came around 6 months in. We were having dinner at a nice restaurant, not super expensive but decent, when she made a comment about my car, a 2010 Honda Civic that was perfectly reliable but definitely showing its age. "Don't you think it's time to upgrade?" she asked, glancing at me over her wine glass. "You're almost 30 and you're still driving a college student's car." I laughed it off. "It gets me where I need to go. Besides, I'm putting extra money toward paying off my student loans." She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't satisfied with my answer. "I guess that makes sense. But once those are paid off, you should definitely think about getting something nicer." Looking back, I should have recognized that moment for what it was, the first droplet in what would become a steady stream of criticism about my finances. Over the next few months, her comments became more frequent. When I took her to a movie instead of a Broadway show for her birthday, I thought we'd do something a little more special. When I mentioned wanting to take a long weekend trip instead of an international vacation, "Don't you want to experience other cultures? We're only young once." At first, I tried to explain my financial philosophy. I believed in living within my means and saving for the future. I wasn't cheap. I just wanted to be smart with my money. I'd grown up watching my parents struggle with debt, and I was determined not to repeat their mistakes. But Vanessa didn't see it that way. She came from a family with money and had never had to worry about finances growing up. Her father was a successful investment banker who had given her a substantial trust fund when she turned 25. Money to her was something you used to enjoy life, not something you hoarded away for some distant future. "What's the point of having money if you don't spend it?" she'd ask. "We could be living so much better." Things really started to escalate around the 2-year mark. Vanessa began talking more and more about marriage and our future together. I loved her and could see myself spending my life with her, but her expectations for what that life would look like were vastly different from mine. She wanted a big house in an expensive neighborhood, luxury cars, designer clothes, and exotic vacations. I wanted financial security, a comfortable home we could actually afford, and the freedom to pursue our passions without being tied to massive monthly payments. One evening, after she'd spent an hour showing me photos of her friend's new 5-bedroom house in the most expensive part of town, I tried again to explain my perspective. "Vanessa, I'm not saying we can't have nice things," I told her, "but I want us to be smart about it. I don't want to be house poor or car poor just to keep up appearances." She looked at me with a mix of disappointment and frustration. "I'm not talking about keeping up appearances. I'm talking about living a good life, having things we deserve. But we can have a good life without spending a fortune," I argued. "Some of my happiest memories are the simple things we've done together." She sighed dramatically. "That's because you don't know any better. You've never had the finer things in life." That comment stung more than she probably realized. It wasn't that I'd never had finer things. It was that I'd made a conscious choice about what was truly important to me. About 6 months ago, things got even worse. We were at dinner with her parents, and her father asked if we had any plans to get engaged. Before I could answer, Vanessa jumped in. "We're waiting until Jake's career takes off a bit more," she said, patting my hand in what felt like a condescending gesture. "He's still trying to find his footing financially." I nearly choked on my drink. My career was going well. I'd recently been promoted and had received a substantial raise. I wasn't making as much as her father, of course, but I was doing well for someone my age in my field. When we got home that night, I confronted her. "Why did you tell your dad I'm struggling financially? I'm doing well at my job." "Oh, don't be so sensitive," she replied, kicking off her heels. "You know what I meant. You're doing okay, but you're not exactly husband material yet." "What does that even mean? Husband material?" "It means," she said slowly, as if explaining something to a child, "that before we get married, you need to be able to provide a certain lifestyle. That's just how it works, Jake." I was stunned. "So what you're saying is that I'm too broke to be your husband?" She rolled her eyes. "I wouldn't put it so bluntly, but essentially, yes. You're too broke to be a husband, at least the kind of husband I need." Those words hit me like a physical blow. I'd spent the last 2.5 years with this woman, loving her, supporting her emotionally, building what I thought was a partnership. And all that time, she'd been measuring my worth by the size of my bank account. Over the next few weeks, her comments about my finances became even more frequent and more cutting. Every purchase I made was scrutinized. Every career decision was questioned. Even my hobbies were criticized if they didn't have the potential to make money. Why do you waste time playing basketball on weekends? She'd ask. You could be networking or learning a new skill to advance your career. It got to the point where I dreaded coming home. I felt like I was constantly being evaluated and found wanting. The woman I loved had become my harshest critic, and nothing I did seemed good enough. The breaking point came about a month ago. We were discussing the possibility of moving in together, something we'd talked about on and off for a while but had never committed to. I thought it made financial sense. We'd save on rent and utilities, and it would be a good step toward building a life together. But Vanessa had other ideas. She wanted us to buy a luxury condo in the city, something well beyond what I could comfortably afford. When I suggested we look at more modest options, she exploded. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," she shouted. "You always want to settle for less. I'm not going to live in some cramped apartment just because you're too broke or too cheap to provide better." "It's not about being broke or cheap," I countered, trying to keep my voice calm. "It's about making smart financial decisions that will benefit us in the long run." The long run, she mimicked. "That's all you ever talk about. What about now? What about living well now?" "We can live well without spending every penny we make," I argued. "There's a middle ground." She threw up her hands. "There is no middle ground with you. You're so obsessed with saving money that you can't see what's right in front of you. I deserve better than this, Jake. I deserve a man who can actually afford to give me the life I want." And that's when something in me snapped. 3 years of comments about my car, my clothes, my spending habits, my salary, all of it crashed down on me at once. I realized that no matter how much I earned or how successful I became, it would never be enough for her. There would always be someone with more money, a bigger house, a nicer car, and she would always want what they had. "You're right," I said quietly. "You do deserve a man who can give you the life you want. And I deserve someone who loves me for who I am, not for what I can buy her." Her expression shifted from anger to confusion. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we're done, Vanessa. I can't do this anymore." Her face paled. "You're breaking up with me? Over this?" "Not just over this. Over the last 3 years of you constantly making me feel like I'm not good enough because I don't make enough money or spend it the way you want me to." "That's not fair," she protested. "I've never said you're not good enough." "You literally just said I'm too broke to be a husband," I reminded her. "What else could that possibly mean?" She started to cry then, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean it like that. I was just trying to motivate you. I want the best for us, for our future together." "No," I said firmly. "You want the best for yourself. You've never once considered what I want or what's important to me. It's always been about your vision, your expectations, your desires." "That's not true," she sobbed. "I love you, Jake. I've always loved you. I think you love the idea of me, of molding me into the man you think you deserve, but that's not real love." She tried to argue, to convince me that I was misunderstanding her intentions, that she only pushed me because she believed in me and wanted me to reach my full potential. But after 3 years of feeling like I was constantly falling short, I couldn't believe her anymore. I left her apartment that night with a heavy heart, but also a strange sense of relief. It was painful to end a relationship with someone I had genuinely loved, but it was also liberating to free myself from the constant criticism and pressure. In the weeks that followed, Vanessa reached out multiple times. She sent long emails explaining that she'd had a revelation about her behavior and promising to change. She called late at night, crying and begging for another chance. She even showed up at my apartment one evening with a handwritten letter detailing all the ways she would be different if I took her back. Part of me was tempted. Despite everything, I did still have feelings for her. But another part of me, a stronger part, knew that going back would mean signing up for more of the same. People don't change their core values overnight, and the fundamental disconnect between our financial philosophies would eventually resurface. So I held firm in my decision, and gradually her attempts to reconcile became less frequent. The last time I heard from her was about a week ago, a simple text message that read, "I miss you. I hope you're doing well." I didn't respond, not out of spite or anger, but because I genuinely didn't know what to say. I miss her too, in some ways. I miss the woman I thought she was in the beginning, the one who laughed at my jokes and seemed content with simple pleasures. But that woman had been replaced by someone who saw me as a financial disappointment, and no amount of missing her could change that reality. Looking back, I can see now that money wasn't just a source of conflict in our relationship. It was a symptom of a deeper incompatibility. Vanessa and I wanted fundamentally different things from life, and no amount of compromise would have bridged that gap. I'm still healing, still processing the end of what I thought would be my forever relationship. But I'm also looking forward with hope. Somewhere out there is someone whose values align with mine, who will love me for who I am, rather than what I can provide financially. And when I find her, I'll know better than to ignore the red flags that warn of fundamental incompatibility. In the meantime, I'm focusing on building the life I want, one that balances financial responsibility with enjoying the present. And for the first time in years, I'm doing it without someone constantly telling me that I'm too broke to be a husband. It's been about 2 months since the breakup now, and I've had a lot of time to reflect on our relationship. Looking back, I can see how Vanessa's comments about money gradually eroded my self-confidence. I started second-guessing financial decisions I would have made without hesitation before. I found myself hesitating to tell her about purchases I made, even reasonable ones, for fear of her judgment. What's most troubling is how I began to internalize her criticisms. There were moments when I truly believed that I wasn't good enough, that I would never be able to provide the life she deserved. It's amazing how hearing something repeatedly can make you start to believe it, even when logically you know it isn't true. Last week, I ran into a mutual friend who mentioned that Vanessa was now dating a hedge fund manager she met through work. Apparently, he drives a Porsche and takes her to all the exclusive restaurants in the city. The news didn't surprise me, but it did confirm what I had suspected all along. Vanessa wasn't looking for a partner so much as a provider, someone who could fund the lifestyle she felt entitled to. What did surprise me was my reaction to the news. Instead of jealousy or regret, I felt relief. Relief that I had escaped a relationship where my value was determined by my income rather than my character. Relief that I wouldn't spend the rest of my life trying to earn the approval of someone who would never be satisfied. Since the breakup, I've reconnected with old friends I had unintentionally neglected during my relationship with Vanessa. Many of them have told me they never thought she was right for me, that they could see how she changed me. One friend in particular, Mark, admitted that he had wanted to say something for months, but didn't know how I would take it. "You were always so focused on saving up for the future," he told me over beers one night. "That was one of the things I admired about you. Then suddenly you were talking about buying a luxury car you couldn't afford just because Vanessa thought your Honda wasn't good enough. It didn't sound like you at all." He was right. It wasn't me. It was the version of myself I was trying to become to please Vanessa, to be the husband material she thought I should be. The irony is that financially, I'm actually doing very well. I live below my means and invest wisely, which means my net worth is probably higher than many people who spend every penny they make on maintaining appearances. But that was never good enough for Vanessa. She wanted the visible trappings of wealth, the fancy car, the designer clothes, the expensive vacations she could post on Instagram. A few days ago, I received a package in the mail. Inside was a book about financial planning with a note from Vanessa. "I've been doing some reading. Maybe I was wrong about some things. Can we talk?" I haven't responded. Not because I'm still angry, but because I've moved on. I understand now that Vanessa and I were never going to work long-term, no matter how much either of us might have wanted it. Our values were too different, our visions for the future too divergent. The experience has made me much more conscious of the role money plays in relationships. It's not just about how much you have, but about how you view it, what you believe it's for, and what you're willing to sacrifice for it. I've been on a few dates since the breakup, and I've made a point of paying attention to how these women talk about money. Do they mention designer brands a lot? Do they seem impressed by expensive things? Do they talk about what they want to own or achieve? None of these things are necessarily red flags on their own, but they're data points I'm now more attuned to. One woman I've gone out with a few times, Emma, has a refreshing attitude toward money. She works as a teacher and obviously doesn't make a fortune, but she seems content with what she has. On our second date, she suggested we go for a hike instead of dinner because it's free and way more fun anyway. It was a small thing, but it spoke volumes about her values. I don't know if things with Emma will develop into something serious, but I do know that I won't ignore the early warning signs again. Money is too important, not because of what it can buy, but because of what it represents. Our values, our priorities, our vision for the future. Vanessa's word, "You're too broke to be a husband," still echo in my mind sometimes. But now, instead of feeling shame or inadequacy, I feel gratitude. Those words, painful as they were, ultimately freed me from a relationship that was slowly diminishing me. They helped me realize that I don't want to be with someone who measures my worth by my bank balance. I want a partner who understands that wealth isn't just about money. It's about having enough time for the people and activities you love, enough freedom to make choices that align with your values, and enough security to weather life's inevitable storms. I'm not too broke to be a husband. I'm just not willing to be the kind of husband Vanessa wanted, one who prioritizes status and appearances over financial security and peace of mind. And that's a distinction I'm finally proud of. A week after I received the book from Vanessa, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was just getting back from the gym when I saw her sitting on the steps outside my building. "Jake," she said, standing up as I approached. "I was hoping we could talk." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to tell her to leave, but another part was curious about what she had to say. "Fine," I said eventually, "but I can't invite you up. Let's go to the coffee shop around the corner." She nodded, and we walked in awkward silence to the cafe. Once we had our drinks and found a quiet table in the corner, she took a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since we broke up," she began. "About the way I treated you, the things I said. I was wrong, Jake. So wrong." I took a sip of my coffee, waiting for her to continue. "I grew up with a certain lifestyle, and I guess I just assumed that's how life would always be for me. My parents made it seem so easy, but the reality is, They struggled a lot when they were first starting out. My dad was telling me how they used to eat ramen noodles for dinner because they couldn't afford anything else. So what are you saying? I asked. I'm saying that I had unrealistic expectations. I was looking for someone to give me the end result without going through the journey. She reached across the table, hesitantly touching my hand. And I lost sight of what was really important. You, us, the connection we had. I withdrew my hand gently. Vanessa, I appreciate what you're saying, but the problem wasn't just your expectations. It was the way you made me feel about myself. For 3 years, you consistently made me feel like I wasn't good enough because I didn't make or spend enough money. Tears welled up in her eyes. I know, and I'm so sorry. I was insecure and I projected that onto you. I was afraid that if we didn't have all the things I thought we needed, we wouldn't be happy and people would judge us. Judge me. But that's just it, I said. I never cared about what other people thought. I cared about building a secure, happy life with you. But you couldn't see that because you were too focused on appearances. She nodded, wiping away a tear. You're right. And I've realized that the guy I've been seeing, the one with all the money and the fancy car, he doesn't make me happy. Not like you did. I felt a twinge of sympathy for her. It seemed like she was genuinely trying to understand where she had gone wrong. But at the same time, I couldn't help but wonder if this realization was too little, too late. I'm sorry things didn't work out with him, I said carefully. And I appreciate your apology, but I think we both know that our values are fundamentally different. You can say you've changed, but can you really be happy living below your means? Driving a practical car instead of a luxury one? Taking local vacations instead of flying to Europe? She hesitated, which told me everything I needed to know. That's what I thought, I said, not unkindly. And that's okay, Vanessa. You're entitled to want the life you want, but I can't be the one to give it to you, at least not in the way or on the timeline you expect. But I'm willing to compromise, she insisted. I see now that I was unreasonable. It's not about being reasonable or unreasonable, I explained. It's about what truly makes you happy. If having luxury items and living a lavish lifestyle is what brings you joy, that's fine. But it's not what brings me joy, and pretending otherwise would just make us both miserable in the long run. She was quiet for a long moment, considering my words. So that's it? There's no chance for us? I sighed. I care about you, Vanessa. I probably always will in some way. But I think we both deserve to be with people who share our values and vision for the future. Don't you? She nodded slowly, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I just miss you so much. I miss certain things too, I admitted. But I don't miss feeling like I was constantly falling short, like I was never going to be good enough. We sat in silence for a while, both lost in our own thoughts. Finally, Vanessa spoke again. For what it's worth, I really am sorry, and I hope one day you can forgive me. I already have, I told her, and I meant it. I don't hold any ill will toward you. I just think we're better off finding happiness separately. She gave me a sad smile. The person who ends up with you will be very lucky, Jake. We finished our coffees and walked back to my apartment building in more comfortable silence than before. At the steps where she had been waiting earlier, we said our goodbyes. Take care of yourself, Vanessa, I said. You too, Jake. And with that, she turned and walked away. I watched her go, feeling a mix of emotions, sadness for what might have been, relief that I had stuck to my decision, and a quiet optimism for the future. As I climbed the stairs to my apartment, I realized something important. Being husband material isn't about how much money you make or what kind of car you drive. It's about being honest, reliable, and compassionate. It's about finding someone whose vision for the future aligns with yours, someone who sees your value beyond your bank balance. By that definition, I was always husband material. Vanessa just couldn't see it. It's been 6 months since that coffee with Vanessa, and a lot has changed. I received a significant promotion at work, one that came with a substantial salary increase. The irony isn't lost on me. I'm now making the kind of money that might have satisfied Vanessa's expectations. But instead of spending it on luxury items or a flashier apartment, I've increased my investments and started a fund for a down payment on a modest house in a neighborhood I like. I've been seeing Emma regularly and things are going well. She's refreshingly straightforward about money. When I offered to take her to an expensive restaurant to celebrate her birthday, she suggested we try a new food truck instead and put the difference toward a weekend trip we're planning. It wasn't that she didn't appreciate the offer. She just genuinely preferred the food truck experience and the chance to save for something we both valued more. Last month, Emma and I were at a bar when we ran into Vanessa and her new boyfriend. Not the hedge fund manager, but someone new. She seemed happy, more relaxed than I remembered. She introduced us briefly, and there was an awkward moment where everyone seemed unsure of the appropriate level of friendliness. But then Vanessa smiled at Emma and said, "Jake's a great guy. You're lucky to have him." "I know," Emma replied simply, squeezing my hand. We chatted for a few minutes before going our separate ways. As we walked home later that night, Emma asked about my relationship with Vanessa, curious about what had gone wrong. I told her the truth, all of it. The constant criticism, the comments about me being too broke to be a husband, the pressure to spend beyond my means. I was nervous about how she would react, worried that hearing about Vanessa's expectations might make her reevaluate her own. But Emma just shook her head. "That's so sad," she said finally. "What is?" I asked. "That she was so focused on what you could buy her that she missed out on who you are." In that moment, I knew I had found someone who saw me, really saw me, for who I am rather than what I can provide financially. Someone who values my character over my income, who appreciates my financial responsibility rather than seeing it as a limitation. I don't know what the future holds for Emma and me. We're taking things one day at a time, building our relationship on mutual respect and shared values. But I do know that I'll never again allow anyone to make me feel that my worth as a person, or as a potential husband, is determined by the size of my paycheck. Money matters in relationships. There's no denying that. Financial incompatibility can tear even the strongest couples apart. But what I've learned is that it's not about how much money you have. It's about how you view it, what you're willing to spend it on, and what you're willing to sacrifice for it. I'm not too broke to be a husband. I'm exactly the kind of husband someone with compatible values would want. Financially responsible, forward-thinking, and unwilling to compromise my financial security for the sake of appearances. And that, I've finally realized, is something to be proud of.